Okay, just had a good talk with our football team. Obviously, this was a very disappointing end to what was a disappointing season for us. And what I told the seniors and I told our team, and specifically the seniors, is just thank them for all that they've meant to UCLA football. This year has not been a good year, but when you look at the body of work of these young men that will not be playing for us anymore, it's pretty significant what they've accomplished in their 4 short years. Unfortunately, it's masked by the disappointment of our record this year. But I thanked them, and I think we should all be thankful. They showed commitment, and they created a standard and a culture around here that we're gonna build on, and then challenge the guys that are coming back. And it'll start with our attitude and how we approach the disappointment of this season, and it'll be reflected in the way we talk to each other and our work ethic and our commitment and our attention to the details, and we'll get going in the right direction again. But this was a tough one. Our hats off to Cal, but we'll rise again. We will. We just will. We have the right type of young men in that locker room, and we just got to make some adjustments, and we'll get better. So, questions.
5-point game pretty early in the third quarter. What do you think kind of changed at that point?
Well, I think the big play was obviously when Nate Metter's interception got called back. That was a big swing. That was a significant play. I didn't see the call, and my eyes weren't in position to see whether or not it was a good call or not. I do know this, that the official that called it is a very good official. I don't know what the replay showed, but regardless, that was a big play. We had many opportunities on defense tonight to get the ball in our hands and maybe take it the other way for touchdowns, and we have been a sure-handed secondary. We've made plays on the ball. Randall Goforth, through his career, has been a guy that catches the ball. As we know this year, Adarius Pickett has been a guy that catches the ball, and those guys let a couple get away. They could have really made a significant difference. Early in the game, not being able to get in and going on offense and sending our defense out there again and again against a really good offensive football team made it very difficult. So it's just very disappointing. But in our disappointment, we've got to find some strength to carry on. We're not going to let it break us. We're going to help it. We're going to let it help us build back up.
It seemed like Mike struggled a lot more than he had in recent weeks. Was there anything in particular that Cal was doing that made him struggle, or why do you think that was?
Well, I agree with you. I do. I agree with you. He didn't look as loose as he has in the previous games, and I'm not exactly sure what the reason. It could have been that he was probably playing maybe his last game. Hopefully he gets an opportunity to play somewhere, but and then you have to give Cal's defense credit. We were running the ball pretty well there early and just having trouble throwing it. I think he felt some pressure. We started 2 new guards tonight, and I think that Mike felt some pressure up the middle that caused some of his throws to be a little bit off target. But once again, you look at the big picture of Mike Faithful and the type of young man he is, and the character that he displayed all year, really not all year, but for 5 years, coming in here as a walk-on, being a third-team guy, really, behind Brett and Jerry, and then we bring in Josh, and Josh wins the job, and then Josh gets hurt, and he comes in, and since Mike took over, his teammates have voted him captain every single week, and when we tallied the votes for our final year captains, he's also a captain for the year. And I think that just says a significant amount about what his team thinks of him. And so while he struggled tonight, just the character he's shown and the class that he's shown through his time here is something to really be proud of.
What do you think needs to happen going forward?
Excuse me?
What do you think needs to happen going forward for UCLA to get back to be what UCLA?
Well, a complete evaluation of everything that we do. You do that every year. You do it whether you win 10 games, or you win 4 games, or you win 12 games, or anywhere in between. You do a complete evaluation, and that's ongoing. But then at the end of the year, when you have the time, you really dig in and you evaluate the way you recruit, evaluate the way you develop players, you evaluate the way you teach and scheme and meet and practice, and the time you devote to each aspect of your program. You evaluate the way you talk to your players, and you evaluate the culture that you're creating and the environment that you put them in. And it always starts with looking right here first, and that's what we told the players is, in order for us to get back where we want to be, we all have to resist the urge to look somewhere else for the problem and look at ourselves first. And if we can do that first, then we can come up with the solutions that are necessary to be a good football team again.
With the work that you guys did with the offense over the season and now to be where you are now, what disappointed you the most about the way the offense performed this entire year?
Not being able to run the ball consistently, and then losing our quarterback. That disappointed me certainly. But more than that we couldn't control. What we could control was just being able to, after that BYU game, really not being able to get a rhythm back running the football. That bothered me. I mean, this is a game that demands that you're able to run the football efficiently. You have to be able to do a lot of things efficiently and throw it, obviously, to score points. But in order to, in my opinion, to be able to really control a football game or control an opponent, you have to be able to run it, and we struggled there.
Do you have any early thoughts about what you will do differently in that aspect next year, run-wise?
No, I think the important thing to do is step back and really evaluate it and not act irrationally, shoot from the hip. It's important to make good, sound decisions based on, the experience that I have or we have, being in this profession for as long as we have and haven't had the success that we've had. And I've been through a lot of football seasons, and there's been some times when, it's felt awful, but you realize when you look back on it that you're closer than you thought to success. And but we're not going to assume that. We're going to dig in deep, and we're going to get this thing figured out again.
I know you wanted those bowl practices, but can it be a positive to maybe start the rebuilding process, this early?
I think it can, yeah. If you want to find a silver lining, it gives us a chance to really dig in on recruiting here for the next couple weeks while it's an open period. It gives us a chance to spend a lot of time self-evaluating our scheme, our verbiage, the way we teach, all the things that I talked about earlier, and that's what we'll do. So we'll really dig in.
Josh Rosen, is there any update as far as whether he might be able to play in spring ball?
I do not know the answer to that at this point in time. I know that he's recovering nicely. I know that right now the process for him is just to rest and recover, recuperate, and then I believe when we come back in January, then his, the range of motion and the strengthening things will begin. But once again, that protocol will be determined by doctors and our athletic trainers, and Josh will follow it and do a great job.
With Kennedy's first year as the offensive coordinator calling plays, how do you think he did in that regard?
Well, I think that it's really hard to just stand here and say. It's once again, it's going back and looking at many things over the next few weeks and determining what we can do better. I think that all of us, every single one of us, is going to look at ourselves hard and say, okay, what can I do to get better? What can I do to be part of the solution? And that's the type of men that we have on this staff, and it's the type of young men we have in that locker room.
You guys had a lot of penalties tonight.
We
Do you
did.
feel like it was a sloppier performance maybe than other games?
Our penalties were mostly on defense. The false starts, the offsides, those bother me. Their center was moving the ball just a little bit, but that should never be a reason for us jumping. I think we got a little antsy. The other ones were aggressive fouls. The ones that bother me are the non-aggressive penalties. Like I said, the offsides. Those things bother me. Some of the aggressive penalties you live with in a football game. Okay. All right. Thanks.